Welcome to Willie's Web, where everyone has a story. And on my show today, we'll be talking about Money Matters. I'll be showing you an excerpt from Money Matters because I want you to take charge. This is about taking charge of your finance and your life. First person is Edward Meyers. He's a Northeastern graduate who worked for the government in human service. He's a retiree. So he made his money, and he's going to tell you how you can save for your retirement and live the type of lifestyle you can. Also, I have that's conversating with him is a guy named Darryl Ruffen, and he's a financial consultant, and he also knows the value of saving and spending money wisely. So if you can bring that clip up, we'll show it to you right now.
Money Matters, as the show is titled, is such a simple thing. It's an issue that we all know we should do, we need to do. It's almost like breathing. You know, we live here in this great country, and it's all about self-sufficiency. That's what it is. You know, you grow up, you're taught to educate yourself, train yourself in some sort of skill or craft, promote that skill or craft, and subsequently get compensated for that skill or craft. So it's all about money. And then life gets in the way. Stuff breaks down. You get paid, but you don't know what to do with it or how best to do with it. And it seems to be a greater challenge for young people because they're just starting out. But the interesting thing there is the conundrum is that it's the very young that should start as early as possible because things have changed. You know, I am a individual who grew up in an era where you could get a job and stay on that job for 30 years, 40 years in some cases, and retire with a nice pension. You know, those were the jobs in the mills, in the auto industry, in the utilities, energy. Many people during that era, they went to those jobs and retired out of those jobs. That's no longer the case. Kids have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 jobs during the course of a career. And every time they move, what they do with the funds that have been allocated for retirement is really sort of critical for them. They need to make the right choices along the way. So I would like this conversation to just answer some of the basic questions that they should be entertaining going down the road. Like the first one is, when should I start?
Well, let me address some of the points you made about getting the education, which is what our country does well, provide that educational foundation to help you go out and earn a living. But where it ends is giving you the fundamentals, the know-how to utilize that compensation that you've spent, you know, most of your life, early life anyways, honing skills to make that money. So what happens is just immediately, first paycheck. Generally what happens, if you go to work for a company, corporation, they always offer a retirement plan, 401k, 403b, whatever the name is. And that should be your first opportunity to save. That should happen like first paycheck or as soon as you're eligible. Another thing you got to really do is get a handle on your money, also known as establishing a budget. Okay?
Okay.
So it's real simple. X amount of money coming in, the amount of money going out can't be greater than what comes in. So when you establish that budget, you really have to prioritize where you're going to spend your money. So you have to live, you have to eat. But having to buy a brand new car isn't necessarily one of those things, but that's generally the biggest pitfall that takes place. So we go to that budget, and again, if you're making, you know, $500 a week or whatever it is, $1,000 a week, you know, you really have to earmark every single dollar. And the number one person you pay is yourself first.
So you're saying we need to balance spending with savings with debt. You got to sort of balance that and set the appropriate priorities on those three categories, because we all have to deal and address those issues. You know, once I heard it's a true story and a true statement attributed to a gentleman who won the lottery a few years back, quite a few years back. And the statement is rich. I mean, you got to like the statement. They asked, what were you going to do with your winnings? And he said, well, I'm going to spend half of it on wine, women, and song. And then he said, the other half I'm going to spend foolishly. It's rich. That's rich. I mean, it's a great statement. It stuck with me, and it's at least 20 years ago when I heard it. It's rich, but unfortunately, that happens too often in real life. Now, I don't know how this gentleman has fared with his winnings, but when you don't have millions coming in every year as a result of a lottery ticket, and you take that approach early and often, you find yourself down the road not where you want to be. Retirement, I think you start early because you need to know what you want late. You know, what you want later on in life. So you got to start early. So if you want to roll large with some foreign import throughout your entire life, then you got to do something. You know, if you want a condo downtown, you got to be thinking about that. What does it cost now compared to what it's going to cost when I can afford it? You know, and I want to maintain that certain lifestyle. So I think that's why you got to start early. You got to decide what it is that you want to do in your life, not just 5 years down the road, but 45 years down the road.
Well, that's true. But and I think that is one of the major obstacles that young people have, is they don't have that foresight. They don't have that long-range plan, that long-range outlook where they can say, coming out of college, hey, I want to retire at 50 and get right on it. Now, you talked about, you know, making millions on an annual basis. No, but the average salary is probably about 50 grand. You multiply that times 20 years, and if you do the math, where you at?
Earning power.
$1 million. So if you look at it that way, and you say, hey, in 20 years, I will have made $1 million, and then you bring it back again to where you are today, and you can't. And you have to be able to put a goal there. So 10% of $1 million is 100 grand. Hey, can you save 10%? That's what it's all about. It's small pieces on a consistent basis will eventually create that snowball that's actually eventually going to roll down the hill and keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. All right? So you're right about trying to quantify today how much money you got. But as again, the obstacle for young people is somebody sitting them down, which is what they don't do at college, and say, hey, if you want to buy a house in 5 years, this is what the down payment is going to be. It's going to be 50 grand. That's what the banks want to see for you to have down payment for a house. Okay, so how can I get there from here? Well, I got to save $200 a month, $300 a month, whatever it is, you got to do it. You got to be willing to do it. You got to commit to yourself. So, to your point about saving early for longer term goals like retirement, you're absolutely correct. If you Google, and everybody in here is technology savvy,
Right.
the power of compounding, you'll see all these resources that will explain to you if you start saving at 25 years old versus waiting till you're 35 years old, what that 10-year difference would mean in terms of your pot of gold.
That's a perfect segue to the next point that's rolling around in my head, so I'm going to stop you there. Another expression you can Google is time value of money, and why it's so important. If you invested $1,000 a year and earned 8%. Now, over the last 30, 40 years, the stock market in general has pretty much averaged somewhere around 14, 16, 18% return. So an 8% if invested in the market is doable over the long term. But if you invested $1,000 every year for 20 years at 8%, at the end of that 20 years, that $1,000 would be worth $49,000. If you did it for 30 years, it would be $122,000. If you did it for 40 years, it would be $278,000. And if by chance you do it for 50 years, it's $619,000. That's $1,000 a year, less than $100 a month.
A lot less.
A lot less than $100 a month. So that's how easy it could be if you're disciplined.
Well, that's the key.
Right.
The key is establishing a plan and following through with that plan and being disciplined. The number one objective is to pay yourself first. And that's what I always tell young folks who approach me about how can I accumulate wealth? Well, you don't want to be paying, the car payment to the bank first. You don't want to be paying your electric bill first, but you will. How about breaking yourself off every pay period or month first, and then the rest goes to what's left? If you have that mentality, you will always achieve. You will always achieve your financial objectives, okay? Simply put, as I tell folks, the difference between the haves and the have-nots is the people who have know what to do with their money. And it's not spending more than you make. It's keeping what you make as much as possible. And to Ed's point, the sooner you do it, the better off you're going to be. Because I can't sit here and say through experience that throughout your lifetime you'll always be able to save a certain amount of money. Kids pop up, marriage pops up, things happen, life happens. So there are going to be times when the resources just won't allow for it. But that early start that you were able to, get on for yourself, that compounding starts to take place. So if I break it down for you, you graduate from school at 22, you get a job. You have a family at 32, but between 22 and 32 was just you in terms of expenses and who you had to take care of. So if you're able to save aggressively during that first 10 years, and then you stop for 10 years, that pot of money that you put away for those first 10 years will continue to compound, and you'll be surprised at what you can achieve again.
That's all.